Welcome to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with TheLibertyBeacon.com, and I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Leonard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. Really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show! Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Constitutionalist Politics. Joining me today from Worldwide Threat Podcast, a fellow host of a podcast. I was on his show, full disclosure. We'll talk about that in a second. But joining me is John Alexander White. Alexander as in Alexander the Great. And I suggested to him, what's your middle name? Because John White is kind of like John Doe. So we better have his middle initial at least, because you all know me. I'm touchy when it comes to names because I am Joseph M. Leonard. It looks French. It's not Leonard. It's Leonard without an O, because there is a Joseph Leonard who is an author out of the Carolinas. So I want John's name, John Alexander White, to have that same distinction from all the other bazillion Google results you might get if you just put in John White. So welcome to the show, John. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Joe.
All
Thanks
right.
for
Now,
separating me from the pack.
Yeah, that's right. We don't want you in with all those, lowly people. We got to give you the stature you deserve. And for the benefit of the transcript, we're both laughing. That's a joke. We're not belittling people. It's a shame these days you've got to explain things, but, with Media Matters, watching broadcasts and looking for anything to attack people like us on and all those snowflakes, you got to explain it. And today's show, we're going to talk about, in part, what I spoke with you about on your show, but in no way is this show a replacement for the discussion we had, because far more was discussed than we're going to discuss here. Already the brain and the mouth aren't cooperating, and then the mouth is dry. So I'll shut up and let you talk in a second. But indeed, so let's start there. First, tell us where you were born and raised and all that kind of good stuff.
Oh, now you're getting personal. All right, so I was raised in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a Midwesterner. And 74 years old and still playing games with business and internet and whatever. So, and I've been in business for 40 years with a national marketing company.
Yep. So you're from the state of Missouri. That's a joke,
I don't
people.
live there anymore.
Yeah, okay. Just a joke, people. Just a joke. Can we lighten up, please? So since this is a Christian show, pun intended, what was the genesis and motivation for Worldwide Threat, TheWorldWideThreat.com, and the podcast?
Well, years ago, my wife and I actually shot a TV series called Live in the Presence. And the idea was go all over different places in the world and interview people that lived in trial and hardship and how they walked out their life to be actually very productive for the community we're in. We were in Nicaragua, we were in Haiti, we were in Jerusalem. We did shows in different places of the world. And in fact, liveinthepresence.com is that particular website. And we've had people from almost every country in the world watch those shows, except for communist countries. And so back then, if you've ever flown to Israel, it's like and we're in North Carolina, so it was like a 20-hour deal just to get there. And I got there and I couldn't get to sleep without getting a vision of creating a show called The Worldwide Threat. But back then, the technology wasn't as what it is today with the streaming and podcasts and all that stuff. So I would have had to go to TV and do something like a 60-minute show. That was the idea. But I shelved it. And about a year ago, I decided to go ahead and relaunch this because there's so many threats. And it's called TheWorldWideThreat.com. And it's a podcast called that. There's also a website. But the whole idea is to help people with problems, everything from COVID to false flags to government to you name it. Let them see those podcasts with experts like Joe, and then we provide an action guide that actually gives them day-to-day ability to see that problem and find solutions that'll help their families and their businesses. So that's our vision. It's really more of a ministry than it is a business. It's the idea is to help community any way we can at this point in my life.
Yeah, and we briefly talked on your show. When did it drop?
It dropped right around the election.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that's what we were talking about. And so people know, again, I don't want this show to be an excuse to not go look at your show, especially the one I was on, because you and I created an action plan, something very unique to your show. You don't have just the guests on. Together with the guest, there is an action plan regarding the topic or topics discussed, and people should check that out. And we had talked in the green room, right? TheWorldWideThreat.com under the podcast tab. Then there's guides where the action plans, action guides are, right?
Yes,
so
and that show was called Black Swans and Terrorist Threats.
Yes, right.
Fall into Joe's expertise. So we got to show people what a black swan is, and you got to describe the threats. That was very helpful in that show.
I'll leave it for them to preferably go to that show to get the black swan definition. So let's just leave that lie for those who don't know. You want to hear that whole show and that discussion of what a black swan event is and why. But you mentioned false flag a second ago, and in part we discussed that, and I want to briefly mention it here. There is a big difference between a black flag happening, or a false flag, happening, like a Reichstag fire, that the term false flag really was derived out of thereafter groups or a government engaging in an event to purposefully, willfully blame another side for the acquisition and acquirement of their own power, as opposed to what I call a hide the flag event that some say 9/11 was. We know there are people in our government who had pieces of the dots, as they say, but supposedly couldn't connect the dots in order to prevent it, right? Or as suggesting it not a false flag, but a hide the flag, were some of them who had the dots and understood Project Bojinka before, and this was coming, hide the flag, hide the dots, not talk about them for their own personal agendas, not make it happen, but let it happen. That distinction is important as Black Swan, is it not?
Well, I think Black Swan is something people don't really realize till it happens. And the false flag, or what you call that scenario, was an intentional manipulation of people. The false flag is an intentional manipulation of people. And it's for various reasons. And it might come to some people as Black Swan because he said, where'd that come from? If you remember where you were when 9/11 happened. But at the same time, it was orchestrated. It wasn't just an accident. And that's why I tie the two together so people can understand how these things can happen.
Yeah, I don't want to get into too many details, and I don't want to get into the was 9/11 false flag or hide the flag or
some kind of flag.
right. I don't want to take the position on that, especially as author of Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You. I have my character avoid the whole 9/11 truther stuff other than to mention it's there. You've got to acknowledge it. But if I'd have made my character consumed by 9/11 trutherism, then that would be the only thing the book notations would be about. Conspiracy, yeah, Alex Jones book or Q Patriot book or, what, and there are so many more other things going on in there that I could not let that be the focus. So again, me nor my character is necessarily taking that position. It's about putting the thought out there and making people think about it, which is, of course, why you're here today. Try to make people think. But one of the things we talked about, the main thing I have you here for, and I wrote a follow-up piece on it, issued some press releases that's garnering some attention now about fight, flight, or fade, an additional term I invented. Fight or flight are not your only options. In any crisis situation, whether it be a terrorist, general criminality, or what, fight is only a good option if you're prepared to do that and have a weapon to use to fight back with. And flight, you can become part of the sheeple trampling stampede that causes yet new problems, and you from the frying pan into the fire. And the new option, fade into obscurity. Now, we're not chameleons. You're not going to be able to strip down and automatically change colors to blend into your background or turn on an invisibility cloak. I mean, try to be as obscure as possible, because whomever is causing the crisis is likely to be caught up in the shiny object syndrome. And if it is indeed a terrorist attack, the greatest number of casualties they could cause would be to take pot shots at those fleeing the shiny object, right? So does fade make sense to you, given every situation different, right? But as a potential other option, if you plan on living through it.
Yeah, so my wife is very interesting. She studies some of this stuff, and she studied enough of it to know that some of that flight stuff is wiring. It's wiring in people that the first natural response is to fight or flight. And I don't think I've ever really understood fade like what you're talking about it, but we've discussed that in the sense that the natural response is if you feel like you're prepared and you feel safe, or like a man, if you're protecting your family, you're going to be prepared for the fight to some degree. But average thing is when it happens, you go, man, what do I do? How do I get out of this trick bag, right? And so I think your concept is great for people to understand.
Yeah, and what I'm concerned about is that it be considered a notion of cowardliness. Right. And I am presenting it as a psychological, thoughtful, logical, reasoned response. Right. I don't want people to panic. I want you to have self-awareness and self-preparedness enough that, hey, a black swan could happen. How am I going to react? Am I going to think or panic? And right. Fade is about a potential option if you're thinking, like you said, protect your family. Uh, Not to make this a sexist thing, but as you said, a man, part of our wiring, protect spouse and children, right?
Right.
If you're not prepared to fight, covering them, trying to fade and providing cover to them is a good option. Again, all situations vary depending. Try to make them a non-target of what is going on. Fade into the obscurity. Let others that are panicking have the attention of the shooter in this particular case we're kind of talking about here. Yes?
Yeah, but regardless of if it's fight, flight, or fade, I think what you've coined as situational awareness is the key. That people don't just walk around with their head in the ground going, okay, and they don't do it. It's not about reacting as much as being prepared, if I understand your strategy. And depending on the person, like I don't have a problem fighting, but I also know that I have a couple dogs that scream if anybody's coming in my yard, right?
So you have warning, yeah,
have warning.
in a way,
And
yeah.
do I need to fade and make sure that we're protected in a way, or do I need to get out of Dodge, as it was in any situation? So I just hope that this podcast
or grab a weapon and fight. Indeed,
yeah.
Right. That's the point here. Thinking, not panicking or just
Right.
reacting. Situational awareness, as I discussed on your show. Again,
Yep.
This is not a replacement. You all need to hear that show. There's a lot of good information there. Not going to be here. Like I talk about my Saturday monologues of the show, thelibertypeakin.com articles are a correlation, a conjunction, correspond with those shows. Additional information is available on the topics from each of the things. So now there are multiple places to get this. But yeah, situational awareness, not to the point of paranoia, not to the point of OCD, where it consumes your life that you're worried and paranoid all the time. Something's going to happen any second. Just at least think about it occasionally that something might happen and resolve that I will think in the fractions of a second I have as best I can, rather than just panic in the situation.
Yeah, I have a little testimony I'd like to share with you if you'd like. One time, my wife and I went on a little trip for about 7 hours. We came back, and a water line in our house broke. And we came back, and there was 2 inches of water in our bedroom. Now, for anybody who's ever experienced that, it's horrific. It took companies 3 days to try to dry out the carpet and all this other stuff. Now, fortunately, it didn't destroy the house, but it did make the house wet, which ultimately comes into mold. Now, so I was not prepared for that at all in this house. Now that I know it's possible, even after looking at the sinks and whatever, could it happen again? Now, when we go away for more than a day, I turn off the water. So I'm prepared for that to happen again, so that my wife and I don't walk into the house that's got 2 inches of water in our bedroom, right? And so that's, to me, that's situational awareness as well, or being prepared. We could have ran from it, but I couldn't run from it. I had to stop it. But at the same time, that was something I never would have thought would have happened in that house. Now I know it can happen, and I'm prepared for it.
Right. No, no, I like that example as a metaphor or analogy of for any other situation. And again, back to the situational awareness and not being paranoid, you're not thinking about it, driving yourself crazy every minute of the day. That's not what we're talking here.
Right. Got to give people peace.
Yes. Right? Yeah, exactly. everything in life is a balance, right? There's going to be good things, there's going to be bad things, things you can control, or a black swan that you can't control. And you at least have to, my point, resolve in advance to be a thinker, not a panicker.
Amen. I buy that.
All right. Well, we already talked about the website. I generally keep my shows around 30 minutes so someone can wander into a diner on their lunch hour, order their lunch, pop on the headphones while eating, hear the show, then be done in time to pay the bill and head back to work. So let's wrap it up. The website, again, is TheWorldWideThreat.com. Is there other ways people can reach out to you or find you?
Yeah, we are posting all these podcasts on all the platforms, YouTube, Meta, TikTok, Rumble, all the platforms. So if they just type in the Worldwide Threat, they'll show up. We are doing full podcasts like with you was, I think it was 12 minutes. We're trying to keep them under 15 as a rule, but my producer is also doing 30s and 60s. So you can kind of watch for shorts. And obviously if they go to the website, then they can see some of the videos and they can see, that's where they can get the action guides that we produce from the shows. We want to give back something to people other than just a video. So they go there, they click on podcast at the top, and the guides are in a PDF form that they can open. They can read them, they can download them, they can share them. There's no cost to them whatsoever. We want this information from people like you and this information to get out to everybody that wants it. And that's doing everything I know how to do to make it available and easy for people.
Yeah, you have the same philosophy as me, like Mike, trying to keep them 30 minutes most tops, because I call it today's twatter attention span, right? Just give it to me in a sound bite. Give me the headline, which of course the sound bite can be out of context or the headline can be misleading, but give people something consumable in a reasonable sized package and ability to go elsewhere to the action guides or me, thelibertybeacon.com, correlating corresponding pieces. They relate, and this show relating to the show I did with you. And like thelibertybeacon.com, it is theworldwidethreat.com, because somebody else might be using it without the word "the," like Liberty Beacon. There is somebody else. So it's the Liberty Beacon and it's the Worldwide Threat, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you, John Alexander, the not quite so great White. Not just kidding. Yes, just kidding.
I'll get you
just
in the green screen, butter.
Yes. Just a fun-loving jab at my friend. It's just a joke, John A. White of TheWorldWideThreat.com podcast, etc. Thank you for coming on with me today, John.
My blessing, brother. My blessing.
Take care. God bless. Just wanted to give a brief shout out and thank you to all the folks on iHeartRadio, Player FM, being 2 in the top 3 platforms that my show, Constitutionalist Politics, is most often listened. So thank you all. Take care. Like and subscribe to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help. Thank you for having tuned in for Constitutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, For starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless.